My fiancé went missing after pacifying the Northwest. I searched to the ends of the earth and finally found him. Though he had lost his memory, he kept the promise he made in his youth and married me. But 7 years into our marriage, we resented each other every single day. Later, he often stayed at the temple with the dim lamp of Buddha, leaving me alone to guard the cold and lonely house. Until my father was falsely accused of corruption by villains, he stepped forward, running around everywhere to clear my family's name. In the end, because I blocked the poisoned wine, my health was severely damaged. At the moment of his final lucidity, he begged me, in this lifetime, the only debt I owe is a life to A Yang. If there is a next life, don't come looking for me. Let me stay in the small town of Shaoxiang and marry A Yang. I agreed. All right. Opening my eyes again, I found myself back on the day I first found Zhai Yanchen. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. The evening wind blew fiercely, and snowflakes swirled in abundance. A voice nearby wept with overwhelming joy. Is my son truly here? Yes, madam. After Lady Shu rescued the person, she has been staying here ever since. Then I shall go knock on the door myself. I snapped back to attention. The orange lantern in my hand illuminated the deep blue night. Before my eyes, the courtyard was nestled beside an ancient phoenix tree. And the bright red double happiness character on the lintel was particularly striking. This was the phoenix tree courtyard that Zhai Yanchen had murmured about repeatedly on his deathbed. I instinctively stopped Mrs. Zhai from stepping forward. Don't, Mrs. Zhai turned back in confusion, i.e., what's wrong? In my previous life, when I found this place, Zhai Yanchen had already fallen in love with the female physician who saved him and was about to marry her. I tried to persuade him several times. But Zhai Yanchen was determined to stay in the countryside and live with that female physician. To take him away, I brought Lady Zhai and the divine physician here. It was tonight, after Zhai Yanchen saw Lady Zhai, that he agreed to let the divine physician perform the acupuncture. The next day, he regained his memory and agreed to return to the capital. But as soon as we left, the female physician Xu Yangran drank poisoned wedding wine and took her own life. Her death stood between me and Zhon Yanchen, becoming an unforgettable knot in our lives. Zhon Yanchen protected me at the cost of his life, and all he asked for in the end was to be reborn in another life and have a happy ending with Xu Yangran. Thinking of this, I suppressed the stinging pain in my heart and opened my mouth. Madame Zhon, they are about to get married. Madame Zhon smiled reassuringly. Don't be afraid, child. Yanchen has just lost his memory. Once he remembers, he will know who truly matters. You have grown up together with him for 17 years, and whether his affection for you is genuine or not, we elders can see it clearly. I took half a step back. There is one thing I haven't told the elders. Now that I see A Chen has lost his memory and fallen in love with someone else, I feel it might be a warning from heaven. I am unable to bear children. Silence fell all around, broken only by the soft rustle of falling snow. Madame Zhai's face turned deathly pale, her lips trembling. Silly child, what nonsense are you talking? You're still so young, I said with absolute certainty. The doctor has already confirmed it. Over the past 2 years, in my search for Zhon Yanchen, I traveled far and wide, exposed myself to the cold, and sometimes my monthly cycle became irregular, but I never paid it much mind. It wasn't until a few years into our marriage, when we wanted to have a child, that the doctor informed me it would be difficult for me to conceive again in this lifetime. After a moment of silence, Lady Zhai sighed. Even so, the Zhai family will not let you down. I believe Yanchen would not blame you either. I knelt and kowtowed to the ground. Nani lost her mother at the age of 4, and I was fortunate to have Lady Zhai treat me like a daughter. For such kindness, I cannot do anything that would leave Yanchen without an heir. In the years after marriage, although Zhai Yanchen regained his memory, he always believed that Xu Yanran's death was inextricably linked to Lady Zhai and me, and remained consistently cold toward us. He often stayed in the pure lands of Buddhism, and during those times, not only did I lack a husband, but Lady Zhai also lost her sons. Lady Zhai sighed. Very well, we won't disturb Yanchen today. Let's discuss this carefully later. After returning, Lady Zhai immediately summoned the divine physician to examine me. As expected, his diagnosis was nearly identical to what I had described. He pondered and said, if carefully nursed for a few years, there might still be a glimmer of hope. However, this matter is still uncertain. I returned the token. It seems Nani and the Zhai family are not destined to be together. Since Aiken has already forgotten the past, it's better to follow fate. From now on, men and women shall marry independently without any further ties. Lady Zhai sighed heavily. for the next day. I repeatedly tried to persuade Lady Zhai, who initially still disagreed with Zai Yanchen's marriage to that female physician. It wasn't until she witnessed Zai Yanchen's kindness towards Xu Yangran that she finally softened towards her son, who had barely managed to reclaim his life. We paid another visit to their home. The wooden door slowly opened, and upon seeing me, Xu Yanran's delicate face instantly turned deathly pale. My repeated visits had long since given Xu Yangran a sense of crisis. At this moment, she was dressed in a red wedding gown, her eyes wary. What do you want now? I've already told you, Yanchen is still not well. If you insist on taking him away, you will only harm him, I said calmly. When did I say I would take him away? Zhon Yanchen is the only son of the general's manor, and Lady Zhon has now acknowledged your marriage. There's no need to rush the wedding. In recent days, whenever I visited, Xu Yangran had always used the excuse of tending to Zhon Yanchen's injuries to keep me at bay, making it difficult for me to get anywhere. Xu Yangran gritted her teeth. You've come time and again to pester my fiancé. How do I know this isn't some scheme of yours to break me and HN apart? Hearing this, Lady Zhon behind her grew impatient. Do you think my word means nothing? Moreover, even if my son is injured, we have our own divine physician. Do not try to deceive with clever words and flattering looks. Lady Zhai, also a general's daughter and a tiger's cub, was startled by this shout. Xu Yangran seemed frightened, her eyes brimming with tears. She took a few steps back, then stumbled and fell to the ground. That migraine can only be cured by me. It's a family secret recipe. What are you doing here? A tall, jade-like figure strode over quickly, helped Xu Yangran up, and shielded her behind him. His gaze toward us was both unfamiliar and full of disdain. I've said it before, I don't care who you are. Yangran is my savior and my wife. If you treat her like this, don't blame me for being ruthless. Hearing this, Madame Zhai swayed slightly. I had anticipated this and quickly stepped forward to support her. This is your mother, I frowned. Meeting the familiar yet unfamiliar phoenix eyes before me, Zhai Yanchen froze, his gaze sweeping over the face that bore some resemblance to his own. After a moment, he said, Mother, I'm sorry. From behind came Xu Yanran's soft sobs. Yanchen, so you really are. Does that mean you don't want to marry me anymore? Today was meant to be the day to bring Zai Yanchen and Xu Yangran home, but Xu Yangran insisted on holding the wedding here, leaving Lady Zai with no choice but to compromise. In the crudely decorated wedding hall, two figures in red robes walked slowly, every movement filled with sweet affection. I stood to the side, my thoughts drifting far away. The youth on the pear blossom tree smiled brightly, his long arm making a throw. A delicate piece of uncut jade landed in my hand. Shen Nani, I'm going to marry you. This is my pledge. I looked up. The youth was silhouetted against the light, his figure indistinct, but his voice was warm and resolute. Coming to. The people in the hall were bowing to each other, and the ceremony was completed. The next day, we set off back to the capital. Along the way, Lady Zhai seemed unwilling to give up, deliberately bringing up the times I had spent with Zhai Yanchen in our childhood. When you were 1 year old and picking your future path, you didn't choose poetry or a wooden sword, but Nani's little braid. When you were 7, you secretly took the family heirloom jade pendant from the mansion. And your father gave you a good beating. It was only later that he found out you had given it to Nani. Lady Zhai was speaking with great enthusiasm, but I noticed that Zhai Yanchen's expression across from us was growing increasingly unpleasant. I quickly seized the chance to interrupt. There's a tea stall ahead. Why don't we take a short rest? Lady Zhai nodded. After getting off the carriage, Xu Yangran looked at me with a grievance and whispered, Does Mrs. Zhai not like me? I reassured her, You're overthinking it. Xu Yangran softly murmured oh and got back into the carriage. From inside the carriage came Zhai Yanchen's voice. I have a headache, then let me massage for you, Xu Yangran said considerately. I was suspicious in my heart. Why didn't I see Zhai Yanchen having this problem in my previous life? Just before we were about to set off, Zhai Yanchen actually came to find me alone. Before I could react, I was pulled by him into a dark alley. Did you intentionally make Mother bring that up? His phoenix eyes narrowed slightly, his expression cold and detached. I was stunned. How could I? He cut me off. Whether it was you or not, please refrain from letting Mother do things that upset Yangran in the future. As for you, regardless of what our relationship was before, my heart now belongs only to Yangran. Whatever feelings you may have, please forget them. Zhai Yanchen bowed, giving me a formal and proper salute. I opened my mouth a few times and answered earnestly, All right. I turned and walked out of the alley first. Xu Yangran happened to see Zhai Yanchen following behind me, and her eyes instantly reddened. Zhai Yanchen lost his usual composure in front of me, brushing past me in a hurry as he walked toward Xu Yangran. I returned to the carriage. Along the way, I could faintly hear Zhai Yanchen coaxing Xu Yangran, "There's nothing between her and me, if you're worried about me regaining my memory. I swear to heaven I'd rather drink medicine and lose my mind than ever recover it." The day we arrived in the capital, the weather was clear. At the gate of the Zhai residence, I helped Lady Zhai step down from the carriage. Just as we were about to enter, Xu Yanran's voice came from behind. "Speaking of which, I still don't know who this young lady is, that she can also enter the general's residence." I paused in my steps and turned around. Xu Yangran tugged at Zhai Yanchen's sleeve. Looking at me with an unwilling expression, Zhai Yanchen calmly looked at Lady Zhai and said, "Mother, Yangran has a point. Now that I am married, it is indeed inappropriate to allow other women to enter the residence freely." Lady Zhai also grew angry, shooting a glance at Xu Yangran, and said, "Do you now have the authority to decide who can enter the general's residence?" Xu Yanran's face flushed instantly. "That's not what I meant. It's just that Miss Shun has ulterior motives toward my husband, and since he has vowed to devote himself to one person in this lifetime, I don't want to mislead her." Zhai Yanchen also said, "This is also my son's intention. Now that I have a family, I can no longer associate with the woman I was entangled with before." 17 years of friendship, after a sudden loss of memory, turned into an entanglement. I found it both ironic and amusing. Zhai Yanchen was indeed as consistent as ever. He is loyal in his affections. When he first fell in love, he made a vow to me: "After we marry, I will be devoted to you alone, never having any relationship with another woman, and I will never let you down." But now, I have become that other woman he avoids at all costs. Lady Zhai looked displeased and wanted to speak, but I gently patted her hand to soothe her. I turned my head and said calmly, "Brother Zhai, you worry too much. Our two families have a very close relationship. Madame Zhai treats me like her own daughter, and I simply regard Brother Hua as an elder brother and Madame Zhai as a mother to honor and care for." Madame Zhai's eyes reddened as she took my hand and nodded. "Good. Today, right here, I will take Nani as my goddaughter, to bring joy to my later years. From now on, anyone who dares to bully her will have to answer to the Zhai family." Xu Yanran's eyes were filled with resentment. But Zhai Yanchen seemed lost in thought for a long time after hearing Madame Zhai's words. I paid no mind to it, accompanying Madame Zhai into the Zhai residence before finding an excuse to return home. One major worry has been resolved, but there is another. 7 years later, my father was falsely accused of corruption by a former subordinate, who now serves under him. Since I woke up, I have had people keeping an eye on this person, but there was no movement for a long time. Now, finally, someone has reported that he has made a small move. After I found evidence against this person, I took it and entered my father's study. We talked deep into the night, and I told my father everything about the traitor. Having navigated the political arena for many years, he had his own strategies and would never be as defenseless as he was in the previous life. As for my marriage, my father sighed, a trace of sorrow flickering in his eyes. I never expected that a single military campaign would bring about such a change. Since things have come to this, there is something I must tell you. Before you were born, your mother made a betrothal agreement with one of her close friends. But as you grew older and fell in love with Zhai Yanchen, I turned down that proposal. It's also that we haven't acted quite honorably. That young man is in Suzhou, Jiangnan, a fine place for nurturing one's spirit. Why don't you take this opportunity to go and relax a bit? Having lived a lifetime, I've long since seen through the matter of marriage, so I shook my head. I don't want to leave the capital, nor do I desire any marriage ties. Father looked doubtful. If you stay in the capital, is it because you still can't let go? I know you've always been deeply loyal and sentimental since childhood. Just say the word if you're unwilling. And I won't let Zhai Yanchen recklessly break off the engagement. I shook my head. It was I who broke off the engagement first. My daughter has lost interest in Zhon Yanchen. Her father sighed softly. There are plenty of fine young men in this world besides the Zhon family's son. I only hope you can move on soon. I smiled faintly, unconcerned, and then brought up another matter. I heard earlier that father once traveled to the southern border, where some people practice witchcraft. I'd like you to invite a few skilled practitioners to the capital to investigate Xu Yangran. Father was astonished. Could it be that Zhon Yanchen's drastic change in temperament has an underlying reason? Then I looked up and said firmly, regardless of the circumstances, I no longer care about this matter. I'm just preparing for any unforeseen needs. Father nodded. For the next half-month, I stayed alone in my chamber, enjoying flowers, fishing, playing the zither. and sipping tea utterly carefree, until news arrived of Princess Pingyang's spring banquet, inviting me to attend. After these days of silence, I've heard all the rumors outside, nothing more than that I lost my marriage, was utterly disheartened, and refused to leave the mansion. Now, after some time to recuperate, I've regained the energy to face things again, and I gladly accepted the invitation. At the banquet, there was cheerful conversation and laughter. The young ladies from the inner chambers treated me as usual, though with a hint of sympathy in their eyes, but when they saw my unchanged demeanor, that sympathy soon faded, turning into gossip. You have no idea. That woman goes to banquets all day long flaunting her title as the young mistress of the general's mansion. Clearly, she's the one who lacks manners, yet she puts on an expression as if we're the ones bullying her. Exactly, it was she who dirtied my dress. I didn't even have the energy to bother with her, but then she had to drag young General Zhai along to apologize, putting on such a show that I ended up looking like the villain. She's far too petty. Only young General Zhai could put up with her. Just as they were speaking, a lavishly dressed woman walked in, and the others promptly fell silent. I looked up to see Xu Yangran, adorned with a golden hairpin and dressed in lavish attire, having shed the rustic air of the countryside. Now exuding a touch of nobility, I deliberately ignored her smiling face and, halfway through the banquet, seized an opportunity to leave, only to be caught up by Xu Yangran in the garden. I replied, "Is there something you need?" Xu Yangran gritted her teeth. "Miss Shen, are you still waiting for Yang Chen?" I asked in confusion. Where did these rumors come from? Xu Yangran said, "If you weren't waiting for him, why would you ignore the gossip and stay in the capital? Why? When others proposed to you, did you refuse?" I remained indifferent. My decision to stay felt more like clinging to a stubborn obsession. Zhai Yanchen once died for me. I wanted to see for myself whether he would truly be content once he achieved his heart's desire. My silence seemed to give Xu Yangran leverage, and she pressed on aggressively. "Was it you who instructed others to deliberately make things difficult for me in front of important people?" I explained. "My marriage has nothing to do with you, and your affairs are none of my concern either. I admit, I disliked you from the moment we first met, but I wouldn't stoop to making things hard for you. A marriage is just that, something I can take or leave." When I found Zhai Yanchen, I had already made up my mind. Since he and she were deeply in love, I wouldn't cause any trouble. But I sensed something strange about Xu Yangran. She was frail, yet insisted that she was the one who rescued Zhai Yanchen from the freezing snow. She often appeared weak and pitiful, yet held an inexplicable hostility toward me. That's why, in my previous life, I was so determined to make Zhai Yanchen regain his memory. It wasn't until later that I realized, whether Xu Yangran was a good match or not, it was Zhai Yanchen's choice, and I shouldn't have interfered. A sly smile flickered in Xu Yanran's eyes. "Miss Shen, you finally admit that you don't like me." I sensed something was wrong and was about to step back when I saw Xu Yangran throw herself backward, falling straight into the lotus pond. "Yangran!" A furious shout came from behind me. I turned around to see Zhai Yanchen give me a cold glance before diving into the lake without hesitation. Xu Yangran was quickly pulled out of the water, drenched and disheveled. She sobbed, "I know I'm not good enough for Yanchen, but he said he only likes me." Zhai Yanchen held Xu Yangran horizontally in his arms, his face showing a cruelty and ruthlessness I had never seen before. I said no one in the capital can harm Yangran. "Guards, throw her into the lake too." I couldn't believe it. "You." But before I could finish speaking, the attendants behind Zhai Yanchen stepped forward, grabbed me, and began dragging me toward the lake. I struggled desperately, but it was no use. Soon, I was thrown into the bone-chilling lake water. The chilly spring air was biting, and the piercing cold lake water submerged me, instantly stirring up memories of my past life. It was after a quarrel with Zhai Yanchen that I threw the keepsake of Xu Yangran, whom he cherished deeply, into the lake, and I myself slipped and fell into the water, as if possessed. Zhai Yanchen jumped into the lake to search for the keepsake, completely ignoring me struggling in the water as well. Fortunately, I managed to struggle and swim to the surface on my own. Why, even in this new life, do I still have to go through this? Like an endless cycle, a curse I can never escape. A force seemed to drain from my chest, making me sink slowly. As my consciousness blurred, it felt as if a force pulled me back. When I woke again, I was lying on a soft bed. My father was waiting by the bedside, his face filled with anger. "I never expected that boy to be so heartless." "Don't worry, General Zhai is a reasonable man. He beat that boy so badly he can't even get out of bed. Tomorrow, he'll be forced to come and apologize to you." The Zhai and Shen families have always been close, but now that this has happened, I'm afraid. I gently tugged at my father's sleeve. Father, I don't want to see him, and that marriage proposal you mentioned last time, I've agreed to it. I want to leave this place, having been reborn. My obsession is gone, I shouldn't insist on staying in the capital anymore, perhaps I should go far away. The debt I owed him has been repaid. Zai Yanchen has nothing to do with me in this life. Father seemed to notice the fear in my eyes and asked strangely, Nani, what are you afraid of? Is it that you're afraid that scoundrel would dare to hurt you again? I'll go find him right now. I quickly grabbed my father's sleeve and shook my head gently, but no words would come out of my mouth. What was I afraid of? Was I afraid of repeating the mistakes of my past life, wasting half a lifetime? Was I afraid that a beloved would turn resentful, that Lady Zhai, who had always been kind to me, would take my hand and beg me not to drive her son away again? Was I afraid that my heart would become as rotten as deadwood, unable to bear even the slightest gesture of kindness, should it ever come? My father patted my shoulder reassuringly. Don't worry, from now on. I will never leave you to face things alone. If you want to leave this place, just find an excuse. His firm voice made my heart feel a little more at ease. Soon, I would come to understand what he meant by the pretext. A man in blue robes was sitting upright in the front hall, sipping tea. His eyes were as clear as water, his lips red and teeth white, and a frost-covered long sword rested at his side. Miss Shen, he smiled at me. Father said his name is Liu Beiyao, the child of his close friend. And also the childhood betrothal that mother had arranged for me. Liu Beiyao is skilled in martial arts. With him by my side, I will surely no longer be bullied by others. I hesitated a little. With many people, there's bound to be gossip. Mainly, if they see me going in and out with a man, wouldn't it be improper? Father waved his hand. If anyone asks, we can use the engagement as a cover. If you wish to leave the capital, he can escort you along the way. I'd only feel at ease once you reach Jiangnan. I had no choice but to accept my father's well-intentioned arrangement. However, when I was with Liu Beiyao, I found myself at a loss for words, unsure of what to say. Fortunately, Liu Beiyao was a broad-minded man. He didn't mind my silence and instead would share interesting stories from all corners of the world. The courtyard is small, often just me playing chess against myself, while he idly watches, chattering incessantly. He said, if one can see the vastness of the world, they realize they are but a drop in the ocean, and there's nothing to worry about. He said, gains and losses are all fate's will, as long as one feels content, that's all that matters. I placed a chess piece, my tone indifferent. Young Master Liu, you talk too much. He gave a casual smile. I just feel that for a lady of your age, Miss Shen, you seem too deep and serious. You should smile more. The luggage for the journey to Jiangnan was prepared at home. The day before departure happened to be the Lantern Festival. After the meal, Father waved his hand and said, you've been in the capital for 5 or 6 days, nephew, and haven't had a proper tour. Today, let Nani accompany you, so this trip won't be in vain. Liu Beiyao cupped his hands and replied with a smile, thank you, uncle. Before I could even react, I was pulled out the door. The long street was bustling with people. Mostly young men and women carrying lanterns, laughing and chatting cheerfully. I looked indifferent, but a rabbit lantern was suddenly handed to me. Liu Beiyao smiled as he held the lantern. I noticed all the young ladies were carrying these, so Miss Shen should have one too. I didn't speak, just looked at him calmly. Do you know what giving a lantern means? He scratched his head. Could it have a meaning? What does it mean? I didn't say anything, pushed past him and walked forward. Not far away, the long bridge was covered with lanterns of all sizes, their lights shining brightly, drawing everyone's attention. The figures of a man and a woman on the bridge looked particularly familiar. I took a deep breath and was about to avoid them when my shoulder was suddenly grabbed. That tree beside the bridge. Could it be the wishing tree? Let's go check it out too. Hey, before I could refuse, I was pulled forward. Liu Beiyao's figure seemed steady, but his pace was not slow. Following behind him, I had no choice but to complain helplessly. Let go of me, I'm not going. Don't be such a spoil sport, Liu Beiyao said with a cheerful laugh. At such a young age, you should join in on the fun more often. By the bridge, Liu Beiyao advised, there are red ribbons over there, I'll go get a few. Seeing his enthusiasm, I held back the words of refusal. But the next moment, a familiar voice called out, Shen Nani. I turned around. Xu Yangran stood on the bridge, holding the finished silk ribbon in one hand, and beside her was Zhai Yanchen. Envious whispers could be heard nearby. Although this young lady of the general's mansion comes from a humble background, she is truly showered with favor. It's said that whenever she is unhappy, the young general will stand up for her, embarrassing many noble ladies in the process. I've also seen pearls and silks flowing like water into the general's mansion. Looking at her now, she seems like a person naturally molded from gold and jade. I looked at the two of them with a calm expression. Zhai Yanchen's dark eyes flickered, staring at me without blinking. Xu Yangran stepped forward, slowly approaching me. I heard that Miss Shen has been ill for a long time. I have some knowledge of medicine. Why not let me check on Miss Shen's condition? Seeing that I remained silent, she said apologetically, that day, Yanchen was too impatient, which led to such an action. I hope you won't take it to heart. The crowd around them erupted in cheers, saying how deeply the young general cared for her, even disregarding his former fiancée. Xu Yanran's face lit up with pride. A voice full of disdain chimed in, your smile is so ugly. A shadow fell beside me as Liu Beiyao, holding a freshly written red silk ribbon, turned to look at me and said, I heard that hanging this red silk on the wishing tree brings good luck. Come try it with me. I nodded. Seeing someone suddenly appear by my side and deliberately ignore her, Xu Yanran's expression turned unpleasant. She turned her head and softened her voice. Yanchen, I've finished writing my wish slip too. Would you like to see it? There was no response from behind. Zhai Yanchen stood directly in front of me and Liu Beiyao. His brows were tightly furrowed, his fist clenched at his side, and he forced out a sentence through gritted teeth. Who is he? Liu Beiyao found it strange, but soon sensed something and said with a forced smile, young master, you're blocking our way. Who is he? Zhai Yanchen repeated, his dark phoenix eyes flickering with emotions I couldn't decipher. Who he is has nothing to do with you. I repeated, nothing to do. Zhai Yanchen murmured, his behavior today, I just find it strange. Liu Beiyao gave a push, but Zhai Yanchen refused to back down, standing his ground as if in a silent confrontation, until Xu Yangran spoke up. Yanchen, what are you doing? Only then did Zhai Yanchen snap back to reality. Staggering a step back to the side, that old Taoist priest said, the higher you throw this thing, the more effective it will be. Liu Beiyao pointed at the red silk ribbon in his hand with a smile. Xu Yangran walked back to Zhai Yanchen's side in a few steps. She reached out and gave him a gentle pat, and his previously tense back seemed to relax again. His gaze was no longer fixed on me, but instead he stared blankly at the red silk ribbon in Liu Beiyao's hand. Yanchen, on this ribbon, I've written my wishes for our future child. Liu Beiyao deliberately raised his voice, one hand resting on her still flat belly. You must help me throw it higher too. Liu Beiyao chuckled lightly. Leaping up with a nimble figure, the red silk in her hand obediently flew up and hung high on the branch. Liu Beiyao crossed her arms, landing beside me proudly. Not bad, right? Seeing this, Xu Yangran gritted her teeth. I want to throw it higher. Zhai Yanchen nodded, and with a single throw, it landed right beneath Liu Beiyao's red silk. Not high enough. Yanchen, help me get it down. Xu Yangran couldn't help but act coquettishly. Okay. Zhai Yanchen nodded, leaped into the air, pushed off a tree with his foot, pulled the red silk from the branch, and tossed it even higher. Not to be outdone, Liu Beiyao followed suit and moved his own red silk to a new spot. In the struggle for position, both men made their moves. Zhai Yanchen's punches were heavy and forceful, while Liu Beiyao was nimble in his movements. They fought back and forth around the tree, until Zhai Yanchen threw a punch that missed and landed on the tree. The wishing tree was shaken, and countless wishing ribbons fluttered down. The surrounding people exclaimed, I just made a wish. The two of them landed amidst the fluttering silk. Zhai Yanchen spoke again. Who are you? Why are you by her side? Liu Beiyao looked at me helplessly, and I stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with him. Naturally, he is my fiancé. Zhai Yanchen swayed slightly. You're going to marry someone else? I find that quite amusing, I said sarcastically. My marriage is naturally my father's decision. But, Zhai Yanchen suddenly frowned. Xu Yangran quickly walked over to him. Your after effects are acting up again. Let me massage your head for you. I had no intention of lingering, and just as I was about to turn away with Liu Beiyao, I overheard a child nearby reading from a red silk ribbon in hand, wishing a Yi to be radiant with joy and smiles, always as serene as Guanyin. Signed a Chen. Another child exclaimed excitedly, I have one too. Wishing a Yi peace day after day. There are so many more here. The handwriting is so beautiful. But who is a Yi? My footsteps halted. How could I have forgotten? Over the years, Zhai Yanchen had always tied prayer ribbons to this tree, starting from the age of 5 until his teenage years when he went off to battle, never missing a single year. Yi. Zhai Yanchen tightly gripped the strap in his hand, his eyes bloodshot, but upon closer inspection, the words on it were not the familiar ones. Yanchen, is your headache acting up again? Quick, let me massage it for you. Xu Yangran said anxiously. A thud sounded from behind. I turned around to see Zhai Yanchen with reddened eyes, veins bulging on his forehead, as he pushed Xu Yangran away and collapsed to the ground, his gaze fixed directly on me. Ah, what? He extended his hand holding the red silk. Quick, the general's headache is acting up, Xu Yangran said. And immediately a crowd gathered around him. I didn't say anything, just held onto the arm of the person beside me. Let's go home. Liu Beiyao's eyes held a hint of regret. What a pity for my wish, it hasn't even been hung up yet, I replied. If wishing trees really worked, would there be so many unhappy couples in this world? Liu Beiyao laughed heartily. That's true. I still believe that success depends on one's own efforts. He raised his hand and gently let go. The red silk ribbon fluttered in the wind and ended up caught on a high tree branch. The next day, I bid farewell to my father and set off on the road to Jiangnan. Just as the carriage started moving, I caught sight of the Zhai family's people hurriedly arriving at our doorstep. In front of the carriage, Liu Beiyao hinted meaningfully, they seem to have some urgent matter. I closed my eyes to rest. It has nothing to do with me. It seems Xu Yanran's tricks are about to run their course. The carriage traveled on, and after half a month, I finally arrived in Suzhou. My mother's face has grown blurry in my memory, but as I gazed upon the misty waters of this region, my heart felt an extraordinary tenderness. Much like the feeling my mother gave me, Liu Beiyao took me to his home, where I stayed as a guest. After visiting Uncle Liu and Aunt Liu, I returned to the courtyard to rest, but just after finishing washing up, I received a carrier pigeon message from my father in the military. The beginning contained some daily greetings, but as I read further, my brows furrowed deeply. My son, as expected, the Miao tribesmen who came to the capital were invited by the general's mansion. That man has regained his memory. He came looking for you, knelt outside the door for 2 days, insisting on seeing you. Fortunately, you were not there. Now it's spread throughout the capital that the female physician cast a love spell, making the young general utterly devoted to her. The Zhai family made quite a scene, intending to punish her, but then discovered she was pregnant. Regardless, he and that female physician are now a settled matter. This has nothing to do with you, my child. I've told everyone that you've married far away in Jiangnan and wish not to be disturbed. I folded the letter. Whether it was a curse or not, the events of the past life truly happened. After staying at the Liu residence for a few days, I proposed the idea of buying my own house. The weather here is like spring all year round, and I've grown quite fond of it, so I've decided to settle here for the long term. Uncle Liu and Aunt Liu were initially worried that their hospitality might have been lacking, which led me to consider moving out. Fortunately, Liu Beiyao helped persuade them, and with my father's letter of approval, I ended up purchasing a large 4-courtyard house, decorating everything according to my preferences. Liu Beiyao also occasionally wanders by, sometimes bringing some specialty snacks. There are many traveling merchants here. Liu Beiyao told me that it's because of the war a few years ago that many refugees came. I've also heard from others that the Liu family generously provided porridge to help these disaster victims. And after they settled down, they each found a place to use their skills. It's drizzling today. Liu Beiyao brought another box of mung bean pastries. After opening it, he sighed. They've gotten a bit cold. They're best when they're hot and steaming. The granny at that tea shop is best at making these pastries, especially when paired with a pot of light tea. Raindrops pattered against the window frame. I took a bite of the pastry and said, "How about going to that tea stall to eat?" He paused for a moment and said, "I'm afraid we might get a bit wet in the rain." Listening to the rain while sipping tea is also an elegant affair. Liu Beiyao and I exchanged a knowing smile. Miss Shen and I can be considered kindred spirits. By the time the carriage arrived at the tea stall, the rain had already stopped. Liu Beiyao leisurely poured tea for me, then pushed a bowl of snacks my way. Outside the window, the sky was as clear as if washed, with a streak of sunlight leaping across the horizon like gold and jade. In the distance, smoke rose from a chimney, threading through the golden light like a ribbon. We didn't speak much, each savoring the tea and the view, yet feeling perfectly content in that moment. As evening approached, we had dinner at the tavern, and Liu Beiyao saw me home. Passing by the night market, Liu Beiyao asked, "Would you like to go down and take a look?" I shook my head in refusal, and he was very considerate. Arriving at the mansion, a hand with distinct knuckles lifted the carriage curtain to help me alight. I hesitated for a moment, then placed my hand on it and stepped down from the carriage. From the shadows, a hoarse voice suddenly called out, "Ai!" Liu Beiyao reacted swiftly, shielding me with his body, and demanded, "Who's there?" A tall, gaunt figure emerged from the dark corner by the door. Zhai Yanchen, unshaven and with sunken eyes, made his phoenix-like gaze appear even sharper, i.e. I remember now, he stepped forward eagerly but was blocked by Liu Beiyao, who stood in front of me. Get out of the way, i.e. is my fiancé. Liu Beiyao, standing tall and straight, replied with a hint of sarcasm, your fiancé. I still remember how deeply in love General Zai and his wife seemed when they prayed together, and now you suddenly remember i.e. whom you once abandoned. Now, Nanyi is my Liu family's betrothed, and it has nothing to do with you. Zhai Yanchen's eyes reddened. His fists clenched tightly. You, stop talking nonsense. Seeing that the two were about to come to blows, I quickly intervened. Stop. Zhai Yanchen withdrew his hand, his tone bewildered. Yi, I was wrong, I've come to apologize. My gaze was cold. Zhai Yanchen explained urgently, it was Xu Yangran. She used a GU worm to control my memories. I only remember that I have one person I love the most and the deepest. She enjoys drinking tea. She has a lazy and serene personality. She loves orchids the most. She is occasionally lively like a child, and at times exceptionally quiet. I once promised her that in this lifetime, I would protect her with my life. I thought she was Xu Yangran, but I was wrong. Everything was wrong. Zhai Yanchen's face was twisted in agony. He couldn't understand how his once smooth-sailing life had come to this. Before he left for battle, the young girl he had cherished for so long was waiting to marry him, yet upon his return, he had become the one who hurt her the most. Listening to the pained murmurs of the man before me, my expression remained calm. Zhai Yanchen, there's no going back now. Whether Xu Yanran's use of GU insects was discovered or not, there was no going back. Zhai Yanchen pleaded. Why, Yi, even if it wasn't my intention, can't you forgive me? I said pointedly. Zhai Yanchen, what you did is what you intended. Since you got what you wanted, don't overthink it. Zhai Yanchen's eyes turned bloodshot. How could it be what I wanted? How could I bear to hurt you? He tried to approach me. I don't want to argue any further, so I look at Liu Beiyao, who quickly understands and stops Zhai Yanchen. For the next few days, Zhai Yanchen waited outside the door. I put down my pen and blow on the letter to dry it. This is the letter I wrote to reassure my father. Leaning against the window frame with his arms crossed, Liu Beiyao said, he waits at the door every day. Do you plan to never leave the house? I slowly rolled up the letter and tied it to the carrier pigeon's leg. I've said all I needed to say. What else can I do? Liu Beiyao smiled cheerfully. I have a solution. What solution? Marry me, said Liu Beiyao, without hesitation. I threw the ink-drenched brush that lay beside me. Nonsense. Liu Beiyao caught the brush and said earnestly, if we were to marry, and then travel under the guise of a journey, we could see the magnificent landscapes and also make him give up hope. With time, he might no longer long for you. I said coldly, how do I know you're any different from those shameless scoundrels, and not just deceiving me into marriage? Liu Beiyao stood with a straight back. I am willing, in the name of the Liu family, to sign a contract with your father, setting a term of 2 years. If within these 2 years you come to care for me, we shall be true husband and wife. If not, I will help you avoid that madman. After a long silence, the bright, shining dark eyes before me gradually dimmed. I said, all right. On the 7th day of the same month, Liu Beiyao and I bid farewell to his parents and set off on our journey. For the first half of the year, a shadow still followed from a distance. Later, I don't know what Liu Beiyao said, but that shadow gradually disappeared. I gradually let go of my worries and immersed myself in the mountains and waters. In the spring of the following year, I went back to visit my father. This time, he lived a peaceful life and was already preparing to resign and return to his hometown. And I also revealed a piece of news. I am pregnant. It was an accident. But when the doctor told me that there was already flesh and blood in my womb, my heart was filled with complex emotions. In 2 lifetimes, this is my first child. Liu Beiyao was both surprised and delighted. It was the first time I had seen him so flustered. Watching him prepare so meticulously, I couldn't help but pour cold water on his enthusiasm. I thought my words would hurt him, but after a moment of silence, he showed a faint smile. No matter what surname this child bears, at least I have the right to stay by their side. Nani, if you wish, I can be yours too. To this day, my heart finally cracked open a tiny fissure, letting in a warm current. In the 3rd year's warm spring, the swallows returned to their nest. I held my 3-year-old daughter's hand. Watching Liu Beiyao swiftly paste the spring couplets, the firecrackers crackled, marking the arrival of another spring. The child burst into loud cries, and Liu Beiyao covered my ears. Father, leaning on his cane, shot us a glare before taking the child away. Liu Beiyao and I exchanged a helpless smile and followed them in. Outside the door, The peach blossoms bloomed brilliantly, swaying in the wind. A faint sigh seemed to drift from somewhere unknown. In this life, as long as you are safe and well, that is enough.